You've got a very wise mother. Thank you for sharing this story. Let me introduce you now to cancer surgeon John West. He's concerned as well. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
What raised the red flag for you? This is a fundamentally important observation.
It truly is, and it kind of evolved over time. The first case was a 39-year-old who was getting into the breast cancer age, so it wasn't a major red flag, but what was amazing about her, she was certain that the cell phone caused her cancer. Rather than just having a single cancer that we typically see in the breast, she had multiple cancers throughout the distribution that corresponded basically to the cell phone. So I presented the case to a large conference of breast cancer surgeons. I got laughed off the stage. I mean, they just said that's impossible. There's not enough energy in a cell phone. You're just, you're out of line. Well, we had a second case very shortly, and then a third case, and Tracy tracked me down and said, my daughter was 21. I said, now this is getting serious. So the real turning point, I was in my office about 6 months ago on the computer, and 3 of the technicians walked in and said, we got another 21-year-old with breast cancer, and she wears a cell phone. I went over to look at the films, and my heart dropped.
I must say, I was unswayed until I saw this image and heard about these other cases. Now, even if you're not a breast surgeon, you'll probably observe that there's some areas that look a little bit whiter. Go ahead and point out to folks, where did she put her cell phone?
Well, she put it right on the, this is on the outside of her bra.
So the breast was actually harnessing a cell phone right there.
Right, directly over it.
So how common is it for a woman without a family history, without other risk factors, who's basically young and healthy, as we learned of, and without genes that would have warned us of this? How common is it for those women to get breast cancer?
I've been doing this 40 years. I've personally treated over 10,000 cases of breast cancer. I've seen 3 cases under 30. So these are 4 very distinctly unusual cases in my mind. Now, my colleagues, when I talk to them, they, well, you're overstating the case here. It's not exactly as you say it. And then, you know what? They're never crystal clear. But the problem is this the tip of the iceberg? This is what has me frightened. I'm particularly worried about high school girls because the young developing breast is particularly vulnerable. We know that from chest x-ray studies where these young girls exposed to chest x-rays as teens had a higher incidence of breast cancer. So there's a major concern that there's millions of women that are actually at risk, generations.
So the big question, should women, all women, consider cell phones to be a risk factor for breast cancer?
I think any woman who puts the cell phone on direct contact with her breast is playing with fire. The older the patient, the less time she has it exposed, probably the less risk. But for the very young woman, particularly these teenage girls, it's cool for them to stuff their cell phone in their bra. They're kind of in a rebellious age. It's very hard to get to them. It's hard for us to get data because there's such privacy issues. But we won't find out about them for decades. And so right now, I think that the cell phone should never be placed on the breast at any time, but particularly not for the young age group.
So cell phone makers say there's no evidence that phones can cause cancer, but all makers, listen carefully, all makers say that you should limit contact of the body with the cell phone. You should keep the cell phone at least a half an inch from the skin. That's what they actually recommend. Some are going further, arguing there shouldn't be close to the skin anywhere. So what's my bottom line? It is very simple. You worry about who your daughter is talking to, but you also need to be worried about where they're keeping their cell phone. For everyone, I want you to take the phone out of your bra and don't put it back. And today we're starting a movement called the No Phone Zone. Now, if you have a creative place that you store your cell phone that's not in your body, snap a photo of it, send it to me on Twitter or Instagram, #OzCellphone, and I'm going to feature my favorites on DrOz.com. We'll be right back.